Welcome back everyone to my modding tutorial. Last time we did a simple ore block and nothing else really. So today we're going to add an ingot and I suppose a nugget to go with that to show off how to do some different types of crafting recipes. So, as always, I went through and commented all the code I wrote during the last episode, so if you go onto GitHub, link in the description, you can see the comments on all the code, including any code I write this episode. So today, I wanted to show how vanilla ingots are declared. Those are in the item class under the register items function. This is where vanilla declares all of its items. And I don't know if I've shown this, but it does this thing where it basically just starts with a constructor and then chains a bunch of methods onto that to set various properties. As you can see, the iron ingot is just an item. It has no special subclass or anything. Like coal has its own item class up here. Swords have their own item class. The ingots, they're just items with a texture set, which seems reasonable enough. They're pretty simple. We're going to go ahead and make a custom class just for the sake of simplicity. So I've already made some name constants and I changed the format I was using to the vanilla one. And this is, I think it was last week, can't remember, Grum tweeted something about in the future block states should have their keys and values follow this system, where they consist only of lowercase letters and underscores. I assume that does not apply to unlocalized names, but since we're adding new stuff in, creating our new tutorial mod as it is, I thought I would go ahead and use that system, just because it's good to have the same name everywhere if you can. Of course, if you already have a mod that you're working on and you're using a different system, I recommend sticking with that for now. Do not change your IDs of items or it will break them. The game will think that you've deleted one item and added another, and if you have a user who changes versions where you change the IDs, they're going to lose their items, and that's not a very good thing. So I went ahead and added ingot and nugget here to our names file, so we can go ahead and close that. Leave this open. We'll need to add a recipe, and I made an item package. So let's go ahead and make an item mithril ingot, and that needs to extend net.minecraft.item.item. Alright, so let's go ahead and add a constructor. Where vanilla Minecraft used that chain of methods tacked onto the constructor, I prefer to call those same methods within the constructor itself, since I'm going to be using custom items for everything anyway. So some of the methods that you can call, you can use set max stack size, and that will allow you to control the maximum stack size of the item. So for most items that's 64. So if you're stacking to 64, you don't really need this line, but if you want to have a different stack size, you'll want to use that. And let's see, set unlocalized name, that's something else we want to do, and that's names.mithril ingot. And you'll notice that the vanilla ingots, we're using a method, I believe is set texture name, something like that. I use something like that in the block class, but I'm not going to be using that here. I've tried recording this episode once and I had some issues, and I think going with my more normal method, the way I normally do it, will work a bit better. So let's see, let's go ahead and add some the add or dictionary and add recipes functions. So add recipes, come back to that, and whoops, okay, public void, and same with the add or dictionary, and we'll come back to that. Oh, and I can't remember, did we have our own creative tab for this mod? Yeah, we did. Okay, so we could add this to our creative tab as well. So that is tutorial mod dot creative tab. Okay. And I can't remember if I did that for the or. I'll try to remember to check that. Okay, now for the item icon. So for this, we're going to override a method called register icons. This takes one parameter, an iicon register, which I just normally call reg, however you want to pronounce that. I have no idea. Organize imports to fix it, and it's format. So this icon register, it has pretty much just the one method aside from some default object stuff. Register icon. And this will return an iicon, which is basically just an icon that you can use for the item version of blocks and items themselves, what they show up as in your inventory. And you can use this register icons function that we're in to register multiple icons. So if you have an item that, say it has multiple sub-items, or it has multiple parts to it that depend on NBT, something like that, you could create an icon, an iicon array, and then just register all the icons you need in here. We only need one, and we are going to assign that to a variable called item icon, which is part of the item class. So reg.register icon, and we are going to give it our resource prefix plus the name of the item, which is names.mithril ingot. If your texture has a different name than this, then you want to put that in instead. Now we also want a mod items class similar to our mod blocks class, which is just where we register our blocks. So we'll do the same thing for items. So mod items superclass can be object, that's just fine. And we want to have a public static instance of item mithril ingot. Just call that mithril ingot. And create a function called init, something like that. And assign to our mithril ingot variable a new instance of a mithril ingot. Okay, and we want to call its add recipes and its add or dictionaries. Okay, and as with the blocks, we also need to register the item in the game registry. So that's register item. We need to give it the item that we just created and the unlocalized name. Again, that's why we have the names class, because we're referring to the same variable, the same string in multiple places. So this just ensures that we don't make any mistakes. Okay, so this should add our ingot into our mod, and this might take just a moment to launch. I have added a few more things in here that I've been working on recently. Okay, probably made a small cut there, It's all good. And that's fine. Okay, it doesn't seem to have worked. Must have made some mistake somewhere. Right, I'm not actually calling this function yet. Forgot to add that back in. Okay, so that'll be right under modblocks.init. And while we're in this file, why don't we change our creative tabs icon to our new ingot. And what's your problem? Changing it to static. Oops. Okay. Forgot to make that static. I try my best to prepare for this, but it doesn't always work especially well. Okay, this time it looks like it is showing up. Its unlocalized name is a bit broken. We're gonna have to fix that, but we do actually have our ingot in the game now. Okay, so how do we fix the issue with the unlocalized name? Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to override another method. So it is public string get unlocalized name. And it takes one parameter, a string, the name of the item, and we want to return our item prefix from the localization helper, which is, I guess I can show that in a moment. Okay, what did I do wrong? Oh, my mistake. That actually takes an item stack. Okay. And that'll be names.literalIngot. Okay, and our item prefix again is, well, why don't you show me the value? Item.tutorialmod:. So previously it was just item.mithril_ingot.name or something like that. We actually need our mod ID in there as well. Okay, that fixed the localization, and I did already update the Lang file here. So we've got this right here. That's the unlocalized name that we're returning, plus the .name. And that's mithril ingot. I've also got the nugget in here already. So now why don't we add a smelting recipe? So I typically like to do that in the ore. It doesn't really matter. So let's replace this comment with a recipe. So we're going to use the game registry to do recipes. And there's several different kinds. You can create a class with a custom iRecipe. Let me rephrase that. You can create a class with a custom recipe handler by implementing the iRecipe interface. That's a bit more advanced. It's something I do a lot though. Or we could add a shaped or a shapeless recipe. Shaped means that the items have to be in the correct positions relative to each other for the recipe to work. Shapeless means that they could be anywhere on the crafting grid. And what we're going to do is a smelting recipe. Okay, so we need 3 parameters here, an input, an output, and the amount of XP earned for smelting. So our input is going to be the block. So in this case, we could just use this. If you have a sub block, then you would need to pass in an item stack with the appropriate metadata. For the output, we want our mithril ingot And again, you could pass in an item stack if you need metadata, but since we're not using that here, we can just give the mithril ingot item itself. And the XP, it looks like iron ore is 0.7, gold ore is 1.0, so I don't know, why don't we do 0.9 just for fun. Okay, and what is your problem? Okay, the output has to be an item stack. Okay, well that's easy enough. So we just declare an item stack and give it one parameter, the item itself. I don't know if I've covered item stack constructors, but you can use just a block or an item like this. If you need more than one in the stack, you can give it another parameter, and that's the count or stack size. So that would give us 2 ingots per ore if I did that. And if you needed metadata, you would include that after that. So that would give us 2 mithril ingots with a damage value of 1, which I'm not quite sure what that would do, and it's not what we would want, so I'm going to remove that. So we should have smelting now, and why don't I go ahead and write the nugget class, and then we'll create some recipes for going between the nuggets and the ingots. Okay, there we go. Here's our nugget class here on the right, and I went ahead and added ore dictionary entries for both the ingot and the nugget. I didn't put an add recipes function on the nugget. I'm going to put both of the recipes in here. So let's go ahead and do a shaped and a shapeless. So ingot to nugget, we can just do shapeless. In this case, since it's just one ingot becoming 9 nuggets, then shaped or shapeless, it wouldn't really matter. The results would be pretty much the same. So we're going to add a shapeless recipe, so we want the output first, so we're going ingot to nuggets. So we want a new stack of, and I forgot to create the instance for the nuggets. Okay, so I'll do that in just a moment. Mithril nugget, and we want 9 of them. And our input is a single ingot, which we just use this. And let me go ahead and add in an instance for the nugget. Okay, there we go. Pretty simple, just what we've been doing pretty much. Okay, so I'll fix that error. And the way you add a shapeless recipe is after the output, you just list each ingredient as a parameter. So say if for some odd reason I wanted this recipe to use 1 ingot and like a raw pork chop or something, I could just put that in. Just put items.porkchop in after this. Of course, that doesn't actually make any sense, so I'll go ahead and remove that. But basically just list each ingredient as a separate argument. Okay, and shaped recipes are a little bit more complicated, but not bad really. So it looks the same pretty much, but the way we need to do this is a bit different. So the output, we want to be, okay, we're going nuggets to ingot. So a new item stack of this, the ingot. And for the parameters, what we're going to do is give it 1 to 3 strings that are going to indicate how the recipe is laid out, with each character of the string representing different ingredients. In this case, we've only got 1 ingredient, so that may not be the best example, but I suppose I could show you a better one after I write this one. So for crafting nuggets into an ingot, typically you have 9 of them, so that's 3 rows of 3. So why don't we call the nuggets in? So the first string will be in. The second string will also be in. And the third one will be the same. Now we need to tell it what the letters represent, so we're going to give it a character in, so that's single quotes around the end instead of double quotes. And then we're going to tell it what n is. In this case, it is moditems.mithril_nugget. And if we had another letter, we would say we had the letter X, then we would do X, and then we would tell it what X is, and so on until we've told it what every letter is. Okay, and that's a pretty long line, so let's go ahead and auto format so it'll wrap it around to the next line to make it more readable. So these recipes should be functional. Let me see if I can find another example of a shaped recipe really quickly. Okay, well here's quite a few examples in Super Multi-Drills. This is for the drill batteries, so here is one example right here. So, well, this is actually a bit different. It's actually using a shaped OR recipe, which is what you would use if you want to have an OR dictionary entry in the recipe. But the way it works is very similar. We've got the item stack. Then we've got the actual layout of the recipe in terms of strings. And then we've got a character followed by an item, a block, or an item stack. In this case, I'm just using regular items. And just each pair represents one of the different items that we list up here. Okay, so let's actually try this and see if this works. This is actually where I was crashing before, and I could never figure out why exactly it was doing that. Oh, okay. Well, what's your problem? Okay, so I see what my mistake is. Alright, so I need to be calling to add the recipes in the OR dictionary stuff, or at least the recipes in another function. I don't know how I managed to forget that. So let's say, let's call it init recipes maybe. Okay, and we want to move these down here. So one way you can move stuff around like that is to just highlight it and then click and drag. That does leave some blank lines behind, but a useful way to move a lot of text around. Okay, and then we actually need to call that method in init. So we want to do moditems.initRecipes. What is your problem? Forgot to save the file. Okay. Always save. Save often. Save all the time. Control S is your best friend. Okay, well that seems to have worked. I think I actually need to do something similar in mod blocks if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I need to drag these down to their own function. I'll do that in a moment. For now, it seems to be working, maybe. Alright, so let's see if our recipes show up in NEI. So, well, that's a bug. Okay, what about the ingots? Alright, we can craft our ingot into nuggets. Cool. And we can craft our nuggets into ingots. Alright. Let me see if I can fix that smelting recipe. It's probably because it's calling this stuff in a bad spot. Alright. And modblocks.initRecipes. And just to make sure, yeah, that is the correct item. I don't know why it was fire. That was very strange. Okay, our smelting recipe actually works correctly this time. That was very funny. I've never seen it do something quite like that. I guess that just goes to show you, put your stuff in the right spots or weird things will happen. Okay, so really quickly, why don't I change these recipes to OR dictionary recipes, just as an example. Okay, so instead of having add shaped recipe or add shapeless recipe, we're just going to use a regular add recipe. And we're going to give it a new, let's see, there is a shapeless OR recipe, yeah? Okay. Well, we'll do shaped for both. That's the best way to do it. So new shaped OR recipe. The result, we want a new item stack of 9 mithril nuggets. And the ingredient, instead of this, we're going to give it an OR dictionary key, ingot mithril. That should allow any mithril ingot to be used to craft our nuggets, if that's what you want. And for the other recipe, so also do a shaped OR recipe. And we want our mithril ingot out of this, and we craft that with, oh, I actually made a mistake up here. Let's just change that to shapeless. Okay, and same as before, just want 3 rows full of nuggets, and the N represents nugget mithril. So again, we're just replacing the item with an OR dictionary key. And what's your problem up here? Import. Okay. And let's comment out these recipes. You can do that by Control/ after you highlight them. Now that they're commented out, those lines won't run. It's good if you're messing around with things, even if you're using source control. It's good to sometimes just comment out lines if you're not sure if you're going to be deleting them or not. And then after you're done and you're sure you don't need them, you can remove them. Alright, let's check out our recipes. So they look the same as before, because we don't have any other kind of mithril in this mod pack. It's pretty slim. I've cut out everything that I don't have an immediate need for. But if we had other mithril ingots, like say you had thermal foundation installed, I think they call it mana infused, something like that, but it's registered as ingot mithril, so you would see mana infused ingots here as well, or whatever they called it. Alright, well, I think I've done a decent job here. Hopefully I was clear about everything I did. I'm going to go through all the files I've created here and everything I've changed and add detailed comments so you can go in and read those if there was something you didn't understand. Hopefully that'll explain it. If not, post it in the comments and I'll do my best to explain it. Just try to make your question clear, please. It's always such a guessing game trying to figure out what people are asking in the comments sometimes. But as always, don't forget, if you haven't already subscribed, you can do that if you want to. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.